Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Farah Aina Fakir binti Syarudin from BA1112D, UiTM Rembau. Today I want to share to you guys about the story, a short story about the Monkey Paw written by W. Jacobs. Actually, the story have three parts. Part 1, part 2 and part 3. So here we go.
For the part 1, this story start out on a dark and stormy night. Member of the White family relaxing in their home. Herbert White and his father were playing chess. Suddenly, the Sergeant Major Morris come to the home of the White family. He tells the story of a white people about his journey in a faraway land and shows them the power of a monkey who has the power to make 3 wishes. At the first, Sergeant Major, he did not want to think about the power, but since Mr. White asked him to say something about the power, then Sergeant Major was telling the truth that everyone should wish for one. So the monkey paw would grant 3 wishes. At first, Herbert did not want it because he said he had everything he wanted. Then the sergeant says, but if he wished for £2, £200, he will able to cover the house debt. For the second part, he feels good tomorrow. Even his paw are not dangerous, so he thinks like crazy. He wants £200, so the money is going to fall out of the sky. So he thought nothing was dangerous. Then one day, some visitor come to the White family home. He told that the company were not able responsible for the death, but would give the white people £200 in exchange for the death of Herbert. So he wanted £200 and replaced it with his life, so it was worthless. In the part 3, a week after the funeral, all of a sudden White screamed out and she need a monkey's head and wished Herbert back to life. Mr. White refused and informed her that Herbert did and the £200 he had got have nothing to do with his perilous wish. Mr. and Mrs. continued to insist that he needs Herbert back to life with a monkey paw. Mr. White eventually fulfills it. He making a wish. Mr. White is moving downstairs. He heard a knock on the door. Mrs. White heard the knock and she says it's Herbert. After the rescue was made, Mr. White asked him not to open the door. As Mrs. White pulled back the door, Mr. White found his feet and made a final wish. The beat stopped and Mr. White cried. Mr. White ran down and looked outside the door, but nothing.
So the first plot is Exposition. The story tells about a white family lives so far out in the countryside in the small palace of Lebanon Villa. Father and his son were playing chess, and the wife, Mistress White, teased her husband as he loses in chess game with the son. The tale of the paw begins with receiving a visit from their old friend Sergeant Major Morris, who spent 21 years with the army in India. Sergeant Major Morris introduced the monkey's paw as a magical object that grants 3 wishes to only 3 people, and 2 people have wished on it, and the first person wished for this in his last wish. So the second plot is Rising Action. Morris tells the wife about the paw that had a spell put on it by an old Indian fakir, a very holy man. He wanted to show that fate where people live and that those who interfere with it, so do their sorrow. He put a spell on it so that 3 separate men could each have 3 wishes from it. Sergeant Major Morris wanted to destroy the paw, but Mr. White still wanted to save it. And the White received the monkey's paw from Morris even though he already warned Mr. White of the consequence. Mr. White wished for £200. When nothing happened immediately, he and his family think that the monkey's paw is a hoax. So the third plot is Climax. Herbert White, the son, killed in the machinery at the factory where he works because of his father's wish for £200 is fulfilled by the company complicity for the Herbert death. While Mr. White could not accept the truth about his son's death, so for the second wish she had thought about to bring her son back from the grave. They hear the knocking at their door like loud. Mrs. White rushed to the door to open it, but it is bolted at the top and she cannot reach it. So the second last part is falling action. While Mistress White is dragging a chair to the door, Mr. White is furiously looking for the monkey's paw to make his third wish because he loses it and does not want Herbert to come in. Mr. White finds the monkey's paw and he makes the third and final wish for his son to go back to the grave. And the final one is resolution. As a result, the door swings open, but there is nobody there. Mistress White is quite disappointed. Mr. White runs out into the street, but there is nothing there except for the quiet and deserted road. It is not said what Mr. White's last wish was, but the noise at the door stopped and the door is open and no one is outside. It ends with Mr. White hugging his wife, who is in grief. So the first is at a small room located in the small parlour of Laburnum Villa where Mr. White and his son were at chess. And the second one is India, where the Sergeant Major Morris, being a soldier abroad in India for 21 years, and do some adventurous things there. And the third one is factory. Herbert White killed in the machinery at the factory where he works.
There are 3 themes in this short story. First, the theme is fate, which is we must accept the fate that has been written for someone else. From this short story tells about Herbert White was died into the machine, and after Herbert White died, in a few days later, Mrs. White made a wish from Monkey's Paw to get her son back, and suddenly, after Mrs. White made a wish, one sound that someone has knocked the door, and she thinking that her son was come back, and she wanted to open the door, but Mr. White not give Mrs. White to open the door. Then Mr. White made a wish again, and he opened the door that no one in front the door. So end of the story. Mr. White made a wish to get his son alive, but nothing happened when he opened the door. So second is thankful, which is we must be thankful with what we have for today. From this short story tells for the first, Mr. White do not make a wish, but surgeon says for him if he make a wish £200, the money will pay for his wife, his house. After that, Mr. White make a wish, want £200. So tomorrow, he feels that nothing happened, and he thinking that this is funny things that the money can drop from the sky. So one day, the visitor was coming, and he said for Mrs. White that Herbert White was died into the machine. So Herbert has a responsible person from that company. Then they give £200 as a compensation, like he wished £200 then instead of taking his life away. So lastly but not least, the theme is lifestyle, which is the way of life of a family that changed everything. So from the short story, tells about the story begins that one night with heavy rain, a middle class white family sitting in the house watching. So Herbert and Mr. White are playing chess. Then Mrs. White sewing the clothes. So their lives change after Sergeant Major Morris come to their house and told them about Monkey Paw wishes.
So the moral value that I found in this short story is we must be a grateful person. The White have a very beautiful life than other person in this world. They have home, they have food, and they also have all the basic needs. But they still want more money to pay house, even though they already have a stable financial. Secondly, we cannot cultivate greed within ourselves. This is because it will give you a bad impact to yourself, such as the White started to make nonsense wishes that can give them nightmare. Thirdly, we must think very carefully before we make any decision for anything that we will request. It will give impact to you, whether good or bad, such as the first two wishes that Mr. White make it come true. However, they have to pay higher cost that not everyone willing to do.